finally, I spent the weekend and a lot of money looking up these reports. I don't know if I'm sure you've seen some of this. Liberals keep aggressively asserting on TV, well, studies show immigrants commit less crime than Americans do. Now, I know that's not true. What I don't know is how they're lying. So I wanted to know, and I try to get the reports. Well, first of all, you ought to be suspicious that one of the arguments they're making is, well, New York City has a lot of immigrants, and I don't see a lot of crime here. That's not a study. That's not science. It's retarded. And, you know, Geraldo was making that argument with me, and Geraldo is not a stupid man, so the facts must not be very good. But anyway, I try looking for the studies, and I put in, sometimes you'd get a reference to the name of a researcher. And then I was looking on Nexus to try to see where are these studies, can I see what they're saying? And you'll get a professor from such and such a university, well, I just did a study, and it turns out first-generation immigrants commit far less crime than Americans. But they're all hidden. I'd track down the study. They're all hidden behind paywalls. And, you know, I'm already paying for Scribd, for Nexus, for a billion different services. So first I wasted 2 hours thinking, come on, you're not going to make me pay $50 for this crap-ass study. But, yeah, I had to keep paying $50 just so I could skim down, find out what the lie is, which is what I'm probably going to tell you all about in my column this week, but I'll tell you right now. They are not looking at Americans. They are looking at criminal Americans.
Yep.
I mean, they have different ways of doing it, but one guy, and the big headline, and he's being quoted in the Dallas Morning News and the New York Times, well, my study showed first-generation immigrants, far less crime than Americans, the native-born Americans. So then you see what he looked at. He's looking at the trajectory, as he says. So the base population were juvenile offenders. So this is someone who has already been convicted of a crime, which he admits, well, my base study began with 45% blacks, 33% Hispanics, and 15% whites. That's not a cross-section of America. That's a cross-section of our criminal population. The other ones will, you know, pick a city at random and look at the native-born Americans versus immigrants. Let's take Detroit. What? Wait, I'm sorry. Do you think I'm not going to point out that the black underclass has a very high crime rate? Because I'm going to point it out. No, I'm thinking we want immigrants to have, to not just beat the black crime rate. I want them beating the Norwegian crime rate. I mean, why should I'm skipping all past this, all lies. I'm skipping past this to get to the point. Why are any criminals coming in? No, we have our own criminals. We don't need more. Because, again, the topic sentence on any discussion about immigration, it is a government policy like any other. It ought to be used to benefit the people here. If you are bringing in one child molester, one drunk driver, one person who needs government services, or English language lessons that are going to have to be paid for by the taxpayers, that is not helping the people already here. I mean, there's ones they keep talking about, you know, the hardworking ones that don't commit crimes, and, you know, they're working so hard and supporting their family of four and sending half of their $8 an hour salary home, and, you know, that's fantastic. They're very admirable. But how does it help America? No, it doesn't. They're using schools and services and hospitals and medical services and the housing aid, and they're sending, immigrants to America, both legal and illegal, are sending $20 billion back to Mexico every year. That's funding Carlos Slim, who saved the New York Times from bankruptcy, another chapter in my book. You know, Carlos Slim makes money off of immigration, especially illegal immigration, to the United States. $20 billion, that is a cost of immigration you will never be told about. $20 billion being sucked out of the American economy. That is money that will never be used to buy an American product, to hire an American worker, to purchase an American house, or tip an American bus boy. No, that is just being sucked out of the American economy. We ought to just, tax Americans. I mean, it takes a circuitous route from American taxpayers to the U.S. government to the low-wage immigrants who need the support from the taxpayers. That's why they can take those low-wage jobs, who, lives in an apartment with 5 other immigrants and then sends it back to Chiapas, his grandmother, who then buys Carlos Slim products. Carlos Slim owns 40% of the companies on the Mexican Stock Exchange, so he needs that money in Mexico. They then buy a Carlos Slim product, and it goes into Carlos Slim's pocket. So why don't can we just write a check to Carlos Slim? I've been dying for someone to ask me this because I came up with a solution a few weeks ago. We put the Palestinian state in France.
Airports scrupulously apply the same laughably ineffective airport harassment to Susie Chapstick as to Muslim hijackers. It is preposterous to assume every passenger is a potential crazed homicidal maniac. We know who the homicidal maniacs are. They are the ones cheering and dancing right now. We should invade their countries, kill their leaders, and convert them to Christianity.
This is what the Ann Coulter doll should look like.
Oh, I know. And in fact, we brought that guy one time. I was showing them some of the various versions of the Ann Coulter doll. Oh. She saw the bald head version.
I hope I wasn't insulting the guy. I'm like,
you
made her
no,
nose
but you
pointy.
weren't doing enough of it, because they're just going to keep sending. We're not going to get this doll ever done if he keeps making me look like Cruella de Vil. Yes, and see what they do on a Barbie is the hair goes in concentric circles. They haven't done that. They have. It's like bald for part of it.
Yeah. But he made her mouth out here.
Yeah, the last one we saw, it was very weird.
Like
big
the Joker.
Mouth.
And then a really pointy nose, and then he didn't put lashes on the eyes, which made her look more masculine.
And, the Rosenbergs were not exactly what we would call model parents.
Well,
I mean, that's what really shocked Hoover. The liberals sort of shift the description of this. But the idea that Ethel was innocent, she's typing up reports, she brings David, her own brother, into it, but that's their fallback position, that she wasn't a paid Soviet agent, therefore she was innocent. And they always say that Hoover was using the mother.
Whose mother? Oh, you can't talk to me right now. Oh, Ann has to be. You are one of the few people who can shut Ann Coulter up.
That's what he said. I got her.
Hi there. Yeah, hi. Fine, thank you. How are you? Say, what am I talking about? That would be great, thanks. No, I love the New York Times. I'd be out of business but for the New York Times. I've heard that. Yeah, I refer to many of the journalists who interview me as the joke bomb squad. They can dewire any joke in 30 seconds. Great, thank you very much. That was a lot of fun. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Can I talk to you while you're doing this?
Yeah.
I have to come up with some, when people ask you about your jokes, what are you supposed to say?
What?
It's one of the most common things where people read a joke to me that I think is a very funny joke. Explain that, Miss Coulter. They just read one. I'd forgotten this article I wrote. It was on Hillary's book, and they had just done a poll about what people think of the Clintons, and it was something like 53% don't want Hillary Clinton ever to run for office. 43% think she should leave the country. It was something, it was a very extreme poll. And then the third, but I quote it honestly, and then the last line was, and 7% have been date raped by Bill Clinton.
which I thought was a good line. They read this. Now, what do you mean by that? It's a joke. A lot of people thought it was funny. Well, then they quoted me saying mean things about journalists. And I didn't realize that they were being testy. I mean, that's sort of embarrassing. I don't think of TV interviews as journalists. And that's why I was clarifying to them I meant print reporters. Because you go, you have a nice lunch, you have a lovely time, you go, and then you read the paper. Oh my God, it's Hitler! Aloud. A loud, friendly argument was preoccupying a table at Bella Blue on the Upper East Side over pasta and a fair amount of white wine. Unfortunately, none drunk by David Card, the author.
At least you weren't throwing up and being bulimic.
Take that out. No jokes about that.
But he shows you eating at least.
Take that out. You can never repeat the insane things people said. Did you see the Gary Condit interview where he repeats the story about his wife not having thumbs? No, it is not good policy to repeat the insane things said about you. Although she is frequently tagged as being a sex object for older men on talk radio, by liberals. Her publicists say her appearances on campus has produced the most rabid response. But let's just say, stipulating for the purposes of argument, that this was a war just for oil. We need oil. Why not go to war just for oil? What do Hollywood celebrities imagine? What do Hollywood celebrities imagine fuels their private jets? How do they think their cocaine is delivered to them?
I'm here because Ann Coulter represents sort of the demagoguery of, presenting a false picture of what's going on in the country. She tells people that, this is all about free market and freedom when it's really about killing people in Iraq and stealing their oil and their wealth.
My fears are right here, but
there are a surprising number of vicious women on the right.
She seems like a deeply wounded woman, and I want to see her pain play out live and in person.
They don't care for people. People are numbers to them.
I just think that she's an idiot.
I don't actually follow that much politics.
I haven't read any of her books.
She looks very anorexic to me. I don't know if she's a restrictor and denies herself that food, and therefore she acts out of that, denial by, becoming an attack dog. And she is a rabid attack dog.
This is Mein Kampf. This is Mein Kampf. It is by Adolf Hitler. And I feel that her policies are just so closely linked to Hitler's that I will see if she will sign this book tonight.
The New York Times' Thomas Friedman, in a commonplace formulation, sniffs that racial profiling isn't civilized, and he blames 20 years of attacks on American interests by Muslim extremists on, I quote, religious fundamentalists of any stripe. I don't know, the Amish have been rather quiet recently. My logic is this. In 20 years of relentless attacks on American airlines by Muslim extremists, in every one of the attacks, one or more Muslim extremists was involved. This ought to help airlines and law enforcement engage in more accurate risk assessment. On September 11th, 2001, 3,000 Americans were slaughtered in a terrorist attack on our own soil. In October 2000, our warship, the USS Cole, was attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1998, our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1996, a U.S. Air Force housing complex in Saudi Arabia was attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1995, 5 Americans were killed in a car bomb set by Muslim extremists. In 1993, of course, the World Trade Center was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1988, a passenger jet, Pan Am Flight 103, was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1986, a West Berlin discotheque frequented by U.S. servicemen was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1985, an Italian cruise ship, the Achille Lauro, was seized. An 69-year-old American shot and thrown overboard by Muslim extremists. In 1983, the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut was blown up by Muslim extremists. In 1982, the U.S. Embassy in Beirut was blown up by Muslim extremists. And starting it all in 1979, the U.S. Embassy in Tehran was seized and Americans held hostage for 444 days by Muslim extremists. Meanwhile, 100% of the terrorist attacks on U.S. airlines for 20 years have been committed by Muslims. When there is a 100% chance, it ceases to be a profile. It's called a description of the suspect. You're really developing your analytical skills here at Johns Hopkins. Very impressive. Wow. At Harvard, they had questions.
My question is, in a democracy, in a two-party democracy such as the United States, do you believe that it's healthy for democracy for one side or the other to be portrayed or demonized as traitors?
David Duke dissents from the equal